Nope. There we go. All right. Thanks everybody for joining today for the second talk of the year. We wanted to make sure that we were starting with a lot of good topics. So last week we had Kevin giving the overview of the CC STAR program, and can't think of a better follow-on to that than having Marla and Wendy come in and brief everybody about the status of wins for this last year and what we're thinking for next year at SC23. So without any further ado, I'll turn it over to both Marla and Wendy to walk us through the program. And if you do have questions during the talk, just pump them into the chat and we'll make sure we get them answered. So take it away, Marla and Wendy.
Great, thanks a lot, Jason. Marla and I are going to split the presentation, and I'm going to do the first set of slides. So I think I probably know many of you. I'm Wendy Huntoon. I'm actually retired, but do a lot of consulting right now. I have been the president and CEO of Kimber, which is the statewide research and education network in Pennsylvania. And prior to that, I was the Director of Advanced Networking at the Pittsburgh Supercomputing Center for 25 years, which is where I got my experience in supercomputing. So what is Women in Networking at SC or WINS? It's a multi-year program that was initially funded by the National Science Foundation. It was developed for addressing the prevalent gender gap that exists in information technology, particularly in the fields of networking, network engineering and high performance computing. Actually, the program came about, Jason, Marla, and I were at a quote meeting in California, and we were just talking about the fact that there weren't as many women participating in SciNet at supercomputing. And what could we do to change that? And so the program that we ended up with is the WINS program. So it is a collaborative project managed by the University Corporation for Atmospheric Research, UCAR, which is where Marla is located, the Energy Sciences Network, which is where Jason is located, and Kimber, the Keystone Initiative for Network-Based Education and Research, which is where I was at the time the program started. So we started it as a pilot program to make sure that we had a good idea, and the first time we sent some WINS participants to supercomputing was in November of 2015 for SC15. And then it has supported volunteers since then up through this past year. So the main thing that the program funds is travel support for the women participants from WINS who go to the show. The travel support now is primarily contributions as well as ES funding for some of the participants. The WINS management team staff are supported by their home organization. I will say it's a labor of love. Most of us do this as part of our regular job or in our own spare time. And I couldn't say more about how dedicated the team members are for the organization. We've expanded our contributors over the years, and this is the list. So Siena, Indiana University, Internet 2, Juniper, Kimber, Meta, the Northern Tier Network Consortium, the Pacific Northwest Gigapop, as well as the Quilt. We did start in 2022 a WINS advisory panel. One of the things that we've been working on is long-term sustainability of the program, and we thought that an advisory committee would be able to help us with it. So here's the list of the people who are on the advisory committee. We tried to get a good geographic distribution, some people who have been on in the program before, people who are familiar with supercomputing. And so I want to thank them for the hard efforts that they've put in over the past 3 or 4 months in terms of starting to give us advice. So right now we have the WINS call for participation is open. So the applications are due Friday, January 27th. So in the slide deck, which Jason will make available after the presentation, we actually have links to the call for participation as well as the WINS application itself. Basically, the timeline is we get the applications in by the end of the month. We actually have an applications review committee. We look over the applications and then we select some participants based on the materials that they provided and the teams that they've indicated they'd like to participate in. And then by usually the middle of March, we notify people that they are selected to participate in WINS. We have started a little bit earlier over the past few years so that we can actually put the WINS volunteers on the SciNet teams earlier in the process so that they actually get the same level of volunteer activities and same involvement in the teams as all the regular SciNet volunteers. The applications do require a letter of support from the applicant's manager, and we really do encourage managers to support this effort. And we do encourage, if you're not eligible to actually submit an application, we really do encourage you to share that with your communities and encourage qualified candidates to apply. Here's a list of the management team. So Marla is the PI or the lead on the project. I'm the co-PI. We have Scott Bailey, Brenna Mead, Lauren Rotman, Kate Robinson, Kimball Sequeptica, Jason Zarowski. The WIN support team, and this is really a lot of the people on Marla's staff. So Buddy Collins, Liam Delaney, Belinda Green, Molly Nelson, and Tasia Peterson. That group is really the group that does a lot of the legwork, keeps the website up to date, helps us bring in the applications and collect all the data that Marla will be talking about in a few minutes. So we have some really specific goals associated with the program. And one of the things we've really tried to be conscientious of how to provide professional development and skill development for early to mid-career women in the program. So we're looking at expanding the skill sets, the professional network, as well as communication skills for the participants, provide technical training that is applicable and valuable to the participants' home institutions, increase the diversity in the SciNet volunteer pool. That's something that we've really focused on since SC20. One of the things that we do now is give preference to applicants who are historically underrepresented in the information technology field. We've really broadened the pool of applicants for the WINS program over the past couple of years. We're really trying to raise the awareness of the issue of fewer women in IT. And then we have really focused a lot on gathering program information, including the candidate metrics. And we do surveys, both of the WINS participants as well as their team mentors, so that we can get a good understanding of the impact that the program's having, as well as anything that we might need to change or refine over time. So here are some of the basic activities. So we select between 3 to 8 women per year, and that often is based on how much travel funding is available, as well as the ability of the teams to actually accept volunteers. We send them to participate in SciNet, which is a unique hands-on experience for building an operational and research network from the ground up at the annual supercomputing conference. The first time I was involved in SciNet was 1991. I know that really dates me, and I found that the experience I got by participating in that and subsequent SciNets was invaluable to my career. The participants are selected by a committee of experts that rigorously review and evaluate the materials that are submitted. SciNet provides this ideal professional development opportunity because of the direct access to cutting edge network hardware and software. One of the comments that we've had from the participants is that they get to experience working with equipment that they would never be able to have exposure to in their own home institution. And that not only helps develop their skills, but brings a level of information back to their home institutions as well. We found supercomputing to be a great partner and very supportive of inclusivity and increasing diversity. The program gives women the opportunity to work side by side with the world's leading network and software engineers and the top technology vendors. We also have developed a number of professional development activities. We fund WINS participants to attend and present at conferences to raise awareness of SciNet, diversity issues in IT, and technical content. We have alumni calls on at least a quarterly basis. And then we've also sent participants to the, WINS participants to the More Leadership program the past 2 years. So some of the challenges that we've run into as WINS has broadened the reach of the program, we have learned about some issues that we're trying to address. One is schedule and time. We actually did start deferments in 2019, so actually prior to the COVID pandemic. And so when we had to defer the 2020 participants, we had already had some experience in that. It's also 2 to 3 weeks away from home. We find that that sometimes can be challenging for the participants to schedule that into their calendar, both for personal reasons, but also as we get candidates from smaller schools. If there's a very small IT staff, then having a single employee away for a couple of weeks could be very difficult. We've also found that travel policies can be very restrictive. For example, many policies require the participants to actually put 2 weeks of a hotel on a credit card, especially for some of the places that we go to support SciNet. That can be fairly expensive. So we've been working on how to lessen the impact of that. We've also found that the communication style varies by age group and demographics. And so we're trying to figure out the best way to communicate just between the WINS participants as well as with their teams. And we also have seen that there are medical impacts as well that we have to take into consideration. So Marla, I'll pass it over to you.
Thanks, Wendy. We appreciate all that feedback. So I'm going to move more into current status and some stats of where we've gotten to. So these were the women that were awarded for SC22. 2 were new awardees and 2 were deferred. As Wendy mentioned, for various reasons, we have now found it's quite effective to defer women for a year. And so you can see we had a pretty broad representation, community colleges, some Indigenous work. Karen is local to me from NREL, and we do always like to see if we can get some labs represented. And then Kimberly came from University of Nevada. So again, that was actually a state we hadn't had represented before. So that was really, really nice. So Wendy, next slide. So we do keep a number of metrics, and Wendy and actually her daughter, when she was in college, helped set up a very elaborate set of metrics. We actually add to those metrics as we go. So to date, this shows the number of women we've had apply, the number of women we've funded, and you can see the number of returning applicants, which again, this is not supposed to be a one and out kind of thing. We like women to be able to go and then return to SciNet. So we do actually help some women return the second year, and try and get their organizations to get it into their budget in order to be able to come back. And so it's quite impressive that a number of those women are now 6 of the 13 leads for SC22 were WINS awardees from previous years. So we're very proud of that, and that's a great statistic. Next, Wendy. This shows the map of where we've received our applicants, and we do actually look at this and see why we're obviously bundled in certain parts of the country. Clearly there's population bases there, but you will notice that the organizations we represent are fairly heavily represented. So Colorado, New Mexico, I have good ties there, and ESNet and CNIC have been very supportive. So California's got a bundle there. And then Wendy, coming from the Northeast, has had a lot of impact there. We are trying to more assertively reach out to some of the parts of the states that haven't had any representation. I've been working with Northern Tier And so, we are actually seeing a little bit of movement there. Texas is a bit of a surprise. We would think that we'd see a little bit more from Texas, but, certainly we're working in that area as well. So we've had over 188 applications, and we do represent 43 states. We have gotten some applicants from Alaska, and I have actually been talking to Gwen Jacobs about what we can do in Hawaii to get a little bit more representation there. Next slide. And this is where the actual awards come from. As you can see, they in some ways mirror where we've gotten applications, but we also have been able to award in a number of states. So the finalists are coming from 21 states. Clearly, we haven't gotten all of the states represented in the actual award. So we do keep tabs of that. Wendy does the review panel, and that is one of the things we look at is geographic representation. And so she, keeps in mind where we haven't had people represented from. And so we do try and also look at the kind of organizations they come from and get some diversity in the types of organizations and any other diversity aspects that we can bring into the program. Next slide. So the impact on SciNet, again, when we started this program, as Wendy said, we started in 2015. You can see the numbers there of women across time. So WINS started in 2015, and you can see that there's been a significant impact in the number of women participating in SciNet. We like to take a fair amount of credit for that. Certainly, I think there are other women that are coming to SciNet, and I think SciNet's become much more aware of diversity. So I think there's a lot more work going on their side as well. But we have had a significant impact. So in 2007, 15 of the 105 volunteers were women, and by 2022, 41 of that 179 were participants. Now, you will see there's a little kind of jostling there in 2021, 22. Clearly, COVID had an impact, and so that had an impact on all volunteers. We actually were able to help quite a lot during the COVID years in bringing a number of women when they were actually struggling at SciNet to get enough volunteers. So that's been a very positive outcome of the program as well. Next slide. And again, we started talking about this a little bit earlier, but you can see the percent of women in SciNet leadership roles, and we were seeing a pretty consistent uptick up into 21. We did see a decrease. We've talked about that in 22, and so we will be working as a team and with SciNet. We meet with the SciNet leadership every couple of weeks to talk about, was that just a perturbation this year, or was there something significant? We do know that there were a number of women that were in leadership roles from WINS that were able, needed to step out this year for various reasons. And so I think that there's some explanations for that, but we did see a bit of a drop in our leadership this year. And then, the other graph shows, the total number of men attending, total number of women that are not WINS, and then the women in WINS in leadership. And again, you can see that we've had quite an impact on the leadership of the SciNet teams. So, the SciNet leadership from a low of 8% to a high of 15%. We started seeing WINS women quite quickly. So this program started in 15. By 17, we had women already in leadership roles, so they moved very quickly to the top. And again, we had this on another slide, but 6 of the awardees were in leadership roles in SC22. And I guess I'll throw a plug in. I can't remember if we've had this on a later slide, but Angie Asmus will be the SciNet chair in SC24. So she's co-chair in SC23, and she's from Colorado, so I'm proud of that. But she's also one of the early WINS awardees, and so she's really done quite well in SciNet. Next slide. And we do also look at the states based on EPSCoR. I think most of you are familiar with EPSCoR as underrepresented states and underfunded. So this is the list of EPSCoR states that have been pretty consistent through time. Every now and then states get added or removed. We do look at this, but these are there's actually been more EPSCoR states than there used to be. So we track that. Next slide. So again, the numbers are pretty good. So we have 191 WINS applicants from 21 EPSCoR states. That's actually 27% of all of the WINS applicants. So we've had a pretty good reach. Again, I think me being in the West, that helps a bit. We have pretty good access to groups that reach out to the states in the West, that many of them are EPSCoR states. The 13 WINS finalists came from EPSCoR states. So again, that's quite a good number of 21 applications. 13 actually became finalists, and that actually is a good statistic as well. 27% of our WINS finalists are from EPSCoR states. So these are the EPSCoR states specifically that have been represented by WINS awardees. So again, we have pretty good reach across all of those states. Next slide. And, Wendy talked a bit about the goals, but this is more specific for the participants. We do hope that they get experience with different types of equipment. And we know this, we do surveys at the end of each SC for both the mentors and the awardees. And we consistently hear that they've been able to touch equipment that they don't normally get to explore at their own home institutions. They get to work with a plethora of other professionals, and again, this comes out that's a very positive part of this program, is they get to meet people from around the country, around the world, top-notch engineers that they might not otherwise get to interact with. They get a nice cohort of women and build their professional network with those women. Many of them stay in touch, many of them become friends. So that's a real positive. And, we don't think they necessarily don't have a supportive group at their home institution, but, we try and build a very supportive team and very welcoming. One of the issues with women leaving IT is that they don't feel their environment is very welcoming. And so we want to sort of show them that there can be environments that are very welcoming, and try and keep them in the field. That's one of the challenges with IT, is not only getting women into the field, but then keeping them there. They make a great number of professional contacts, and many of them have been able to move their careers with those contacts. And they get to see supercomputing, and supercomputing is a world-class conference. And so many of them have never been to a big conference. They've never been to the scale of supercomputing, which is huge. And so I think they get exposed to the whole research and education community. And again, we hope that encourages them to stay in that field. And the broader professional network, we work with them. The WINS team tries to remain supportive throughout time. I have written many letters of support to keep people in the country, green cards and citizenship letters. And we write letters of recommendation. Many of the women, most of the women, I think, put this on their resumes. So it has gotten quite a bit of name recognition. So I think it is a pretty powerful program for the participant. But we also feel there's a lot of value to the home institution. So your staff get to attend and contribute to a high-profile conference. That's something that hopefully is positive for your organizations. They receive direct mentoring from us, but also from teams and team leads who are the formal mentors. They get to represent your home institution. We try and put the logos up of the home institutions that are being represented, so there's recognition there. They get real work experience, and so it's probably, I send staff personally to SINET, because it's probably the best professional development environment if you can have staff go for that duration that they'll ever get, with hands-on experience and being able to bring ideas back to your organization and really grow their technical skills. And it does increase the diversity in the networking field, which is good for all of us. This is a nationwide, worldwide problem, and hopefully all of us are realizing that we need to get that other 50% of the population really helping solve these difficult problems that we have in the world, and specifically in research and education. The next slide. So I'm not going to read through all these. You will get access to the slides. These are, some experiences from a long list of women that have participated recently and in the past. I think many of you know some of these women. But I think, across the board, it resonates with what we just talked about as the kind of experiences people came back, back to. And I think, Kate notes that you can't get this kind of experience, by looking at YouTube's and Google's. It's hands-on experience. The team, Soledad, came back and really, emphasized the people, component of that. Debbie has participated for many, many years, and she's moved up into leadership positions as well. And again, the people and the technical skills that you get out of this. And Kimball is now part of our team, as you've seen. Kate and Kimball both have now stepped in and are part of our management team. And that was also one of our goals, is to be able to provide leadership opportunities and wins as we go forward. Next slide. And these are a couple of our more recent, Alicia and Angela, a couple comments. And again, the note of teamwork and meeting a lot of people and getting to work with technology that they haven't ever had to the opportunity to work with as well. Jennifer Kim is a great success. She came from a community college in Pennsylvania. She did go through the Quilt More program. I think it's really exposed Kimber directly to somebody in their community, that they can see the benefits of these kind of activities, and Kimber's been very supportive about that. Again, we talked about Angie and the opportunities that she's provided. And if you are part of the sign up mailing list, there was a very nice mailing that went out yesterday about SC23, and Angie had a nice interview about how WINS has really influenced her career. And Mary has come back now for 2 or 3 years, and that lifelong professional network. Wendy and I have worked with each other for many, many years, as have Jason and I. And I think, you can't underestimate those long-term relationships, and not all women are able to build those relationships, especially with other women, if they're the only woman working at their organization. And so this provides them that female professional network if they take advantage of it. So next slide. So just another plug. We decided to put this at the beginning and the end, depending on which side you were paying attention to. Wendy went into quite a lot of detail about this. We do encourage you to forward this out to any of the lists that you have, and any access you have, if you know women directly, if you want to apply directly. But certainly we have found that the broader the reach, the better the applications we get. And so we send out to a number of our lists, but we do know that many of you have deeper ties into some of the communities that you work with, and we do encourage you to pass this on and encourage people to apply. Next slide. And I think that's it for us. So I'd like to open this up to conversations and questions and discussion. It certainly can be a broader discussion about diversity and any successes you have had in your work working on diversity efforts. Or if you have specific questions for Wendy and I about WINS or starting a similar program. I guess I'll also put a plug in, and Jason can correct me. I think I heard that there is a kind of pilot program to have a booth at SciNet that is open to individual researchers that might not have the funds to fund their own booth, or their organization doesn't have the funds to fund their own booth, which again, I think is a good effort on SciNet's part to again, encourage, in this case, more the researchers, but encourage some of the smaller and underrepresented groups to come and actually show the research they're doing, and give them a venue to do that. So that's a really nice thing that SciNet's doing.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Marla. That is something that we're trying to do this year, funding permitting, but we will be trying to do something like that. So thanks for going through that presentation. I added the link to the participation into the chat room if anybody does want to capture that, and we'll certainly share the slides in the video afterwards. Everybody is able to unmute now, so if anybody does have any questions they want to ask, you can type, you can raise your hand, or you can just unmute and ask your questions.
And I do see Debbie on here, and I see just somebody else. Oh, Mary's on here. So, if you two, having participated directly in WINS and done it for more than a year, have any comments that you'd like to make, or any observations, that would be great. It's Friday. It's quiet.
Yeah, it's Friday. It's Friday, and people are shy. So I guess I can start us off with a couple of questions here. So based on sort of the feedback that participants have given us over the years, and I'll put Marla and Wendy on the spot, but certainly Debbie and Mary can answer if they would like. Uh, what were some of the highlights that the participants sort of listed? Whether it be having the ability to touch new and exciting hardware or just networking opportunities. What are some of the things that people are pulling out of this program and taking back to their home institutions?
So Marla, I'll start. The one that struck me the most. So one of the women this year, she came from a very small school. They were about to buy some optical equipment. She talked to her team lead about the equipment that they were buying. Turns out that they were spending too much for the equipment. And so when she got back to her home institution, they looked at new equipment or and saved, I think it was $20,000 on a piece of equipment that they were going to buy. So that was sort of a really immediate impact, but I think that was really illustrative of as we've really looked to, broaden the schools and the institutions that submit applicants and then our participants, that having that broader group of people to talk to about when you're making decisions, I think can have a real bottom line impact at your home institution.
I have one. I mean, this is Mary Bull. One thing I really noticed that I enjoyed from my first year is that I'm involved in wireless in my institution, and a lot of the wireless skills that I have are things that I have learned on the job here, so that can make it a certain like feeling of like, is this really what everyone else is doing, or is this, am I especially when I have to ask other people to spend money or to do certain things that I think based on my analysis is the right thing to do. So it's definitely really interesting to be on a team with people from around the country and people who do this professionally at a higher level than I do, to say, oh, to see in practice, like we're actually completing the project, and to see people making the same decisions that I would have made. That was a great kind of confidence boost, I would say, in my professional experience.
Thanks, Marion. I think that's actually a good point, is, kind of reaffirming your confidence level and your skill set. I mean, I think that's also part of professional networks. And, as I said, often I call Wendy and say, does this make sense? Or is this how you would handle this? And I think, that really helps both technically and at a professional level, is to reaffirm that what you're doing is actually an industry, as Jason knows, and I think Jennifer, we just went out and I was asked for some metrics, and, I went out to them and I said, does this make sense? Is this still kind of industry best practices? And again, that network allows me to kind of go out to people and continue to do that. So that's great that you were able to see that. I guess the other thing I'll say, and this is not related to Jason's question, but I think for Wendy and I'll speak for Wendy and I, but when we kind of dived into these programs, I wasn't quite sure where they were going to go and what was going to happen. But I think for me, I've gotten as much out of this. Yes, it is a labor of love and we've thrown a lot of effort into it, but I've learned so much, and it's also built my professional network. So, indirectly, I can reach out to any of these women as well. And now I have a much broader reach into some of these organizations. And it's been nice. I have a parallel project with Navajo Tech University. So, between, Kimball and Deshawn and Angela, I now have an interesting connection there that kind of overlaps between WINS and some other CC Star projects I'm working on. And so I guess I would encourage, if any of you are thinking about going into some sort of effort or diversity effort, that I feel it's worth the effort, because you gain as much as probably the participants themselves. And I've certainly learned a lot, as Wendy said, about, the younger next generation and kind of how they function and how they deal. And that's helped me and my management of my staff and younger staff. And so I think there's a lot of symbiotic things that happen that make it a really great program for both the mentors and people leading the team and the participants themselves.
All right. Well, thanks for the feedback on that. I'll put out another call here. Does anybody else have any questions or comments that they want to ask?
Well, since nobody else seems to have anything, this is Debbie Flagger, and I was in the WINS 15 cohort, and there were a couple of really awesome things that have come out of WINS for me. And possibly the biggest one was getting to meet people, not only that were really good at what they did, but that were as enthusiastic and thought this was as much fun as I did. Getting together with those people for 2 weeks or 3 weeks out of the year, and I could not do it all the time. It's way too intense, but spending 2 weeks with people who love doing the same thing you do is just an incredible thing to experience. And I would have never gotten to be there without WINS, because we didn't have funding to get me to SciNet. Then my management decided it was worth it and found the funding, but I had to get there first and prove it. The other is I have not only taken on some leadership work at SciNet, but the confidence I built doing small things with SciNet was no small part of me taking on leadership roles at my home institution. And that has been a great boon for my career as well. So I have nothing but great things to say about WINS. It's done a lot of good things for me.
Thanks, Debbie. Well, that leadership's an interesting point. I think many of you know Jerome Martinez, who is one of my staff, but he has also worked on SciNet for a number of years, and we just moved him into a leadership position, largely because of the leadership he's again gained from SciNet. So it actually, I don't know that I would have thought about that with SciNet so much, but it has proved. And Carlos Rojas Torres is another one who has taken on much more responsibility and is leading some of our efforts that I think SciNet really helped. You helped him with those confidence building leadership skills, but was also I think sometimes when you leave an organization and go do those leadership skills, you get more credit than if you do it in your own organization. And so, it's certainly been good for me to hear good feedback on my staff and then be able to use that. I mean, literally, I did use that as justification for part of the promotion process for Jerome. So thanks, Debbie. Looks like there's a hand raised, Herbie.
Hey there, how's everybody doing? So Hervey Allen, Network Startup Resource Center at the University of Oregon. And I just wanted to say thanks for this meeting because I realized I have several people I want to let them know about the WINS program who are all, undergraduate, graduate computer science students. And it really I'd sort of slipped my mind. Oh yes, the 27th. So thanks again. We'll get those, those pushes will go out and hopefully they'll apply.
And I may be wrong, Herbie. I don't think we've had anybody from Oregon. We certainly probably had applications from Oregon, but I'm not sure we've had a.
We had a couple from us, right? They didn't get a go. I think they weren't experienced enough at the undergraduate level, but it was a really good experience to apply and even to know that it exists. And I have a couple more people who are at the graduate level at this point who might be more interesting applicants. So we'll see if they're interested and try and get them applying. And maybe Oregon could get their first person to show up. That'd be great.
Thanks. Any other questions, comments? I do want to thank Jennifer. Jennifer's on here and she's been a tremendous support for WINS through the years. So I think as a woman in IT, she appreciates the effort. So we appreciate all she's done for us.
It's a great program. I've been happy to support it in my various roles.
And
I wish it had existed when I was starting out. We didn't have anything like this.
Yeah, that's true. I think that there are, fortunately, I think more opportunities for women now to get some of this experience. And I see Chris on here, so work on that Hawaii side, Chris.
I shall.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining today and certainly, please let people know at your home institutions and your regions about this. I mean, it looks like we have pretty good coverage here. I see people from Florida and South Dakota and Pennsylvania and Oklahoma and Oregon. So any and all of you, make sure that you're passing this along to your organizational structures, just as an FYI. The more people that know about this, I think the better for the community, so that we can increase gender diversity and hopefully train a whole new generation of network engineers. Because let's be honest, we're all getting older and we don't want to do this anymore. So we're going to need younger folks to start stepping up here. So thanks everybody for joining today, and thanks to Wendy and Marla. We're on a 1-week break, but we are going to come back on the 27th, I believe. And we will have a talk from Steve Wallace from Internet 2, and he's going to be talking about the routing integrity project that he's been leading there. So hope everybody has a good weekend, and we'll talk to everybody soon.
Thanks, Jason.
Thanks.